Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the strongest negotiating tools I use when I'm purchasing a property. If your experience has been anything like mine for this last year, the market is pretty hot and it's hard to even get an offer accepted. Once you do, you don't want to scare the seller away. But once you're under contract, there are some things that you can do to negotiate the best price. One of the things that I learned from my dad when I was a kid is that we used to go to swap meets or flea markets, depending on where you live. When we were at a booth trying to buy something from somebody that was something we probably had never seen before in our lives, but we knew we couldn't live without, he would try to negotiate the best price, and he had a lot of tactics that he would use. But the one thing that made the most sense to me is when he said, the person with the ability to walk away has the power. Whenever you're purchasing a property, mentally maintaining some walk away power is one of the things that will give you the strongest leg to stand on. Actually, at the end of today's video, I'm going to share something that a seller did during one of my purchases that actually made me about $10,000. It was one of the biggest mistakes that a seller can make. One of the things that I like to negotiate is something that a lot of people don't think of once they have a property under contract. You are still trying to get the best loan. I prefer to use mortgages. I have a video on if I'm going to use leverage or pay all cash, but personally, I like to put down 20 or 25%, depending if I'm going to house hack it or if it's going to be an investment property. But when I'm using leverage, I get a letter of pre-qualification from a lender that looks at my credit score, knows how much I'm qualified for, and gives me an estimate of what the rate would be. I don't have it locked in yet, I just have an estimate. So when I make the offer on the property, I can submit a proof of funds letter or a letter from the lender saying that I'm able to qualify. I actually like to include a letter from a lender that says I've done several deals with them and I'm a good closer, because that helps make my offer look more attractive to the seller. Once you're under contract, that's when I take my loan offer from my original lender to a couple of other lenders and see if they can beat the rate. And what I've done every time so far is those lenders, if they give me their offer in writing, I take it back to the original lender so that they have something they can take to their manager and say that they want to give me a better rate to keep my business. So far, every time that's worked. So you are negotiating with lending throughout the entire process. My strongest tool when it comes to negotiating with the seller once we're under contract is the professional home inspection. You can look at a building and say, hey, it needs a new roof, or hey, I see cracks in the foundation, or it's going to need some new decks, and tell the seller that you think there's going to be $20,000 worth of repairs. And the seller's under no obligation to give you any concessions. They don't have to lower their price. They don't have to fix anything. If they want to make the sale and they don't have another buyer offering that amount without those concessions, then they might make adjustments. But what's been most effective for me is to have a professional home inspection done, because the next day you get a 70 to 90 page professionally written report. And the home inspector is trying to protect themselves, because if there's something wrong with the place and they miss it, they might be liable for it. And once I get that report, I will take select pages, pictures of the damaged areas, and send those images with the paragraph, not the entire report, the paragraph from the inspector saying what the problem is, what it's probably going to take to replace it, and what could happen if it's not repaired. Because now you have an uninterested third party doing a write-up that looks professional in language I probably couldn't come up with, sent to the seller. It's possible that a seller might not have known that the damage on the property existed, especially if it's a landlord or somebody that lives in another state and didn't even know these things were there. They know that if your deal falls through and somebody else is to buy this property, that they're probably going to have it inspected too. As an example, I was purchasing a fourplex. I offered $5,000 over their asking price, was able to get that accepted. I used a large earnest money. Another tactic I use in this really hot market to get a deal accepted is to go with a really high earnest money. But I still have an inspection clause and an appraisal clause, so I'm not really putting that money at risk because I have some ways to get out of the deal if it's not what I want to get. On this fourplex, I had offered $5,000 over asking price. I had the professional inspection done. It cost me about $1,150. And in that inspection, they pointed out things I was already aware of. The place was going to need a new roof. The decks were bad, and there were some other small things. In my letter to the seller, I pointed out that there was about $30,000 worth of work that was going to need to be done. $30,000 is a lot to ask off, so I pointed out there was about $30,000 in repairs that were needed. I asked for $20,000 off, and the seller did exactly what I thought he was going to do. They came back with taking $10,000 off the asking price. I was happy at $5,000 over, but my $1,150 inspection report took $10,000 off the price because it gave me a strong negotiating tool with the seller. What's great about this is I was getting the fourplex at what I thought was a good price. I was able to negotiate a better price. And the really cool thing with this fourplex, it is 4 units that are side by side with garages, which is kind of rare for my area. Each unit is 2 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,236 square feet. There is a third bedroom in each one of these units. I just haven't built them yet. So I am going to build those bedrooms eventually, but not today. I'll probably do the unit that I'm living in first so that I don't interrupt anybody, and as each tenant moves out, before I move in another tenant in, I'll probably add the bedrooms there. Ultimately, I will make these 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom units, adding about $500 more a month in cash flow because the gap between 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom is huge because now you start to add in families. At the beginning of today's video, I said I would point out when a seller made a mistake with me, and what this is something that you want to avoid doing. Sometimes people will sell a property using a 1031 exchange. The idea is you can delay paying taxes by taking the gains in one property and investing in another property. But when you're negotiating with a buyer, and you're standing there looking at a duplex that I was buying, the last thing a seller wants to say to a buyer is, this purchase is part of a 1031 exchange. Because one of the restrictions about a 1031 exchange is a very strict timeline. You have so many days to identify the property you're going to buy and so many days to close on it in order to protect yourself from having to pay these taxes. So in the negotiation process of buying a duplex, the seller was talking to me and he was letting me know that it was a 1031 exchange. We were having a nice conversation. He was telling me about the state he was moving to, how he wanted to buy a bigger house, a bigger duplex, that he would be in one side that was about twice the size of the one he was selling me. But this is a business transaction. And me knowing that they were stuck to a really strict timeline and the strength in negotiation is whoever holds the walk away power has the power, meant that I was able to say, I actually want $10,000 off for these repairs, and if you aren't willing to make that adjustment, I'm just going to walk because I like the place but not that much, which really put the seller in a bind. And he acquiesced. I'm not saying that you want to take advantage of somebody, but this is business, and it's not your job to make sure everybody else makes money. It is your job to make sure that you do the deal legally, and fairly, and to the best of your ability. And the best of your ability is negotiating the best price for yourself. There is one other thing that you can negotiate that I want to talk about really quick, and that is agent fees. If you are using a real estate agent to purchase your properties, I see a lot of talk in the forums, like on BiggerPockets or in the real estate rookie groups, where people say, you know, do you want to use Redfin or one of the other things that's only charging 1%, or how do you get your listing agent or your buying agent to lower their fees so that you can get a better deal? And my answer is, don't. The best deals that you're going to get are going to come from having a good relationship with your agent, and you want your agent motivated to work with you in the future. I'm really happy that my agent makes money when I buy a property, because that means that, well, they're nice people. I like them. But that means that in the future, when they get a good deal, they're going to bring it to me. I'm going to be one of the first people they think of to call, because I'm not saying, hey, why don't you lower your fees on something? My family runs tree services. My dad owned one. My brothers owned one. My one brother shut his down when he retired. My family always had a good way of judging who our friends were. When you run a tree service, or if you do some type of work that people just don't like to do, everybody you know is going to call and ask you to give them a good deal or a better price. And my dad said, the best way to know if somebody's your friend is that they call you and they hire you to do a job at your going rate. A friend will not ask for a discount. That's using your friendship. Having a good relationship with your agent doesn't come from taking money away from all of the hard work that they did to put themselves in the position to bring you good deals. I really hope I made it worth your time logging into this video today. If you liked it, if you think you got anything out of it, please hit like, hit subscribe, share this with a friend. Maybe they can learn from it. Until the next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk.
We're sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service at this time.